Hey everybody, Joe Joseph here, and this is the DailySheeple.com's Daily News Brief. Let's get into it. H.R. 5732, top story of the night. This coming right from Congress.gov. And my goodness, you would think that with an incoming president like Donald Trump, who has basically openly said that he is not about imperialism, that he's about bringing the troops home, that he's about doing the right thing as far as putting the resources to work for the American people and not putting it overseas, not funding the United Nations, not doing things like that. Well, look at what we have here, H.R. 5732. And H.R. 5732 is very interesting because of what it's named. The Syria Civilian Protection Act of 2016. It was introduced by Representative Eliot Engel of New York. And I won't get into all the text. You can go and check this out, H.R. 5732, right on Congress.gov, and you can actually read this bill. It was passed in the House of Representatives on November 25th. And it was introduced into the Senate on November the 16th. So it passed the House. It's in the Senate. Don't know when it's going to be debated on, but this is the purpose of it, so it says. It says to halt the wholesale slaughter of the Syrian people, encourage a negotiated political settlement, and hold Syrian human rights abusers accountable for their crimes. Let me stop there. Last time I checked, ISIS doesn't have an air force. So who is the no-fly zone that this is set up for? This is the purpose of it, is to set up a no-fly zone in Syria against the will of the sovereign government that's there. As a matter of fact, the no-fly zone purpose is to do it because of the sovereign government. Now, again, doesn't matter what you feel about Bashar al-Assad. I can tell you that the Western propaganda machine labels him to be something that he's not. Not to say that he may not have done bad things in the past. I don't know. I'm not as educated as somebody who, say, may live in that region. But I can tell you from people who have been interviewed, locals who have been interviewed by independent media people over in that area, I can tell you that they have a far different opinion of Bashar al-Assad than does our Western media and or our government propaganda machine, who says that this guy is a dictator, he is guilty of crimes against humanity. Meanwhile, here in the United States, not only did we have the Bush administration, not only did we have the Obama administration, even the Clinton administration, who bombed innocent civilians, who killed American citizens without due process. It's just time to execute. And you're telling me that they're not or should not be held accountable for war crimes or crimes against humanity? Are you kidding me? And then we, the people, because remember, our government is acting on behalf of us. We are supposed to be the boss. And they're doing this in our name. This cannot have have any good benefits here because of the treaties that Syria has entered into with countries like Russia and Iran, among others. And not only that, but we have treaties in place with Israel, Saudi Arabia, and other countries in that region to where if Syria retaliates against one of our allies, we're obligated to respond. So this sets up an ability for the powers that shouldn't be to get their regional, at a minimum, or world war, worst case scenario, that they want. and they can blame it on the Trumpster. Why? Because this guy is going to be the scapegoat of all scapegoats. Now, I personally think that it didn't matter who got in. That's why, I was never for Trump. I was never for Clinton, because it doesn't matter. The control freaks have it planned out either way you cut it. And to be honest with you, if I was a control freak and I was thinking like them, I would want Trump in the presidency because it affords me more opportunity to wreak havoc. Whereas with Hillary Clinton, you've got to maintain that globalist framework. Here, with Trump, you can implode it all and kind of wash your hands of it because it's all Trump's fault. It's the nationalism. You people wanted Trump? Well, this is what you get. You guys, this is what you did? Don't cry over spilt milk. I mean, this is their way of doing that. So the H.R. 5732, to me, is extremely dangerous, and there is a total and complete media blackout on this. And special thanks to Dabu77 over on YouTube for bringing this to light. And I can't say this enough. This is extremely important from a foreign policy standpoint. We have a lot of things to worry about here in the United States, but this overseas can get ugly real fast if this is allowed to pass and take effect. So it remains to be seen how this plays out. And of course, governments all over the world overreach their power with regard to the people, the masses. SHTFplan.com today mirrored a piece from the Daily Sheeple by Piper McGowan talking about a biowarfare test that could have happened down in Australia. Now, this is interesting because this mysterious illness left 6 dead and over 8,500 hospitalized after a rare asthma. A rare asthma. Let me read this to you real quick. This is very interesting. And an editor's note from SHTF Plan says the capabilities, of course, are there. The shadow government has tested and prepared for and mulled over the possibility of using biological, chemical, or viral warfare. And it seems clear enough that there has been or have been at least isolated episodes where this has been done. Entire cities have been bombarded with bacteria strains released in aerosols, though they were supposedly harmless. And many other tests may have been conducted, but the extent and effects of those tests are unclear and in dispute. Nonetheless, when bizarre episodes like this take effect or take place in specific regional areas, and a large number of people become sick or die, as is happening right now in Australia, it begs the question of what's really going on. And right now, excuses are being made about allergies or pollen or other particulate that's been stirred up by storms. But is that really what's going on, or is there much more to the story? So this is Piper McGowan reporting. She says the official story on this sounds totally made up. More than 8,500 people were hospitalized last week, and 6 have now died in Australia due to what is reported as a rare phenomenon known as thunderstorm asthma. Stop there. Just let that sink in for a second. Thunderstorm asthma. Does that not sound like snake oil to you? The Sydney Morning Herald reported that at the peak of this thunderstorm asthma outbreak, people were calling for an ambulance once every 4.5 seconds. And it was like 150 bombs going off. That does not sound to me like an asthma. In fact, when has there ever been an asthma outbreak? Outside of maybe what you hear in Los Angeles or over in Beijing, where you have smog, sometimes so bad that it flares up people's asthma. But this is unbelievable. So here's the official story. What officials are suggesting happened is that pollen grains from ryegrass fields surrounding Melbourne were blown across the city just before a sudden downpour. And once the rain hit, The pollen grains absorbed the moisture and burst in the air, releasing thousands of much smaller allergen nanoparticles that were inhaled and became trapped in people's lungs. And once the rain stopped, thousands of people began suffering asthma symptoms all at once, everything from breathing issues to cardiac problems. Some people suffered heart attacks. 6 people have died. One girl died in her family's arms in their front lawn, waiting more than a half an hour for an ambulance because the system was completely overloaded. Apparently in Melbourne, they ran out of ambulances and had to resort to every other emergency or even non-emergency vehicles that they could find to help people get to the hospital. More than 60 people are still in the hospital, some in critical condition, fighting for their lives. And officials claim this can occur when weather conditions suddenly change. But in an era where they're trying to get us to believe in man-made climate change, Piper calls BS. Doesn't that just sound ridiculous on the surface? I think it does. The weather suddenly changes all the time. And if that's really all it is, why doesn't this rare phenomenon happen more often? Let alone, why doesn't it happen here in the U.S., especially in the Midwest, the breadbasket of, to me, the world, where you have not only freak thunderstorms and changes in conditions, but you also have tornadoes that can whip up a bunch of stuff. And there's rain. And you would think that there would be an outbreak of thunderstorm asthma over in the Midwest. But you don't hear of anything like that, do you? Could this have been a test gone wrong? Was it a test? These are things that we have to ask ourselves. And this isn't the only disease out there or outbreak, if you will, that has happened. As a matter of fact, there's one very serious outbreak that continues today. And a lot of people don't know about it, but it's much more common than what you would think. And there's a great website out there that is dedicated to the studies and the study of Morgellons disease. And Clifford Carnicom spearheads this effort, and his website, the Carnicom Institute, is probably the premier site in the world with regards to Morgellons research. And right now what he's doing is he's got a research project underway where he is getting people that have Morgellons symptomology to fill out surveys and send them in. And he tests samples as much as he can because he's doing this all on his own dime. He's bought test equipment. He's bought research equipment. He has studied extensively into this, and he's done this since the 90s. And his website is a resource of data compiled for the last almost 20 years on this disease. And to give you an idea, because if you notice, the government explanation over in Australia was nanoparticulate. Also is the explanation of Morgellons. Only it's not what you think when it comes to nanoparticulate. See, with Morgellons, what Mr. Carnicom has figured out is that, and you can also check out YouTube, there's a video called Silent Superbug. Check that out. It will blow your mind. It's an older video, but it gives you an idea and a background of what Morgellons is. And what Morgellons is nanotechnology, but synthetic nanotechnology. And when you look at it under a microscope and doing a chemical analysis, you come to find out that it is nanobots, self-assembling nanobots that are creating fiber optic networks within the human body and replicating themselves, utilizing the resources of the human body, and ultimately causing these awful sores that appear all over the body with these multicolored synthetic fibers that you can pull out of these sores. And it's attributed to the aerosol campaign that's going on here in the United States and all over the world. Now, if you go to the Carnicom Institute, the website carnicominstitute.org, it will take you literally a year or more to go through all of the research that Clifford Carnicom has done with regards to this. But I cannot find another site out there that shows empirically and in a logical, methodical, scientific way that we are being tested on, and or there is a campaign underway. And of course, I know it's so hard to believe that the government and or other entities would want to do this to us, but there's a campaign underway to make us sick. Just let that sink in for a minute. And then, after you see what's on the Carnicom Institute, go back and check out Thunderstorm Asthma. And I guarantee you, you will find Thunderstorm Asthma to be the most asinine explanation that you have ever heard. It's unbelievable. But hey, the government is here to help you. It's here to protect your best interest. It's here to protect your rights. So much so that the Christian Science Monitor just reported that federal agencies are pushing midnight rulemaking, a big push by Obama to get a record number of new regulations in place prior to his departure, even if it means that a new president would do away with most of them. Because that's the best way to be a vanguard of the taxpayers' money, is to have your big, bloated bureaucracy go about publishing and going through the motions of putting all these regulations in place just to have them undone. You see, folks, this is the problem that we face, and the apathy out there is really our worst enemy, because nobody is holding our non-representing representatives to account, our bureaucracy at Mordor and at the Potomac to account. Nobody is. I mean, we do have the fourth estate, the independent media, your fake news agencies, according to Proper Not and the Washington Post, that are doing our damnedest to bring it to light. But the push and the accountability has to come from the people. And the people better get energized and not be lulled to sleep with a false sense of security of a President Trump. Because this man, whether he's well-intentioned or not, is just one man that cannot single-handedly do this by himself. And even if he could, he's certainly not surrounding himself with people that would make change on a grandiose scale conducive. As a matter of fact, I'm seeing a lot more status quo. Oh, you might get somebody here or there that might buck the trend a little bit, but like I said before in other news briefs, it's simply crumbs. It's crumbs that they're throwing out there for everybody, just to sate you. They're not going to bite the hand that feeds them. And I know that Trump is a billionaire, but the people around him are not. The people in Congress are not. The people in the judicial branch are not. And the people that serve the bureaucracy surely are not. And at the end of the day, let me tell you something. It doesn't take much at all to buy off these people, especially in the regulatory body. So, folks, we need to really, really pay attention to what's going on, because there are some things coming down the pipe that are scary for sure, but avoidable if we apply the pressure necessary and hold these people to account. And the only way to do that is to get off our butts and get active. I'm Joe Joseph. This was the DailySheeple.com Daily News Brief. I will have one again for you tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody, and God bless you.